It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we're talking Glenn's Emmy-winning performance in the first season of Damages.
Time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today, I am so blessed to get a chance to podcast with every time. You last heard her talking with me on the Dangerous Liaisons episode, co-host of the Oscar Wild podcast and associate editor at Awards Watch. Welcome back, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me back. I am genuinely thrilled to be here again, and especially considering the topic today.
Yes, very that. I mean, also, I introduced Eric yesterday as the Patty to my Ellen. I suppose I'll introduce you as maybe the Patty to my Tom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we maybe have the Patty and Tom. We can have the Patty and Tom dynamic today, which is a good one.
I'm fine being number two. It's okay.
You're really good at being number two. It's what you were born for, right?
I guess what I was born for. Yeah. No matter what offers are out there, I'll always be your number two. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Yes. Before we talk Glenn in the first season of Damages, I, of course, know your relationship to Glenn Close, as you talked about on your first episode and as we've even talked about offline. But alternative question for you this time around. If you had the power to cast Glenn in a future film, what's the genre and what kind of role would you cast her in?
I love this question, and it's so clear that I am drawn to Glenn as a villainess. We talked about Dangerous Liaisons before, and in what I think is her defining performance as the Marquis in that film. And I love her in these nasty, wicked roles. I think it's where she really does shine. I think she's wonderful at comedy too, and those warmer roles as well. But it's an obvious answer. But I want her version of Tar or There Will Be Blood. That is what I want. I think that was even, made more clear when I was rewatching season 1 of Damages, because I just think she can dominate those sorts of scenes. And the reason why I mentioned Tar and There Will Be Blood, because they're actor showcases. You get to see these like really dark, nasty people doing what they do best. But there's also a sort of, I don't know, like poisonous comedy to them at the same time that I think she can absolutely nail. So I need her to just be, mean and self-absorbed and really funny. I would obviously, love if she worked with Todd Field. I think that would be just incredible. Come out of your semi-retirement again. Or obviously with Paul Thomas Anderson, I think they would be just a fantastic pair. And then just another one. I also just read this wonderful book by Joyce Carol Oates called Fox. And I think she would devour this private school headmistress role that is in there. I just kept picturing her as I was reading the book, and the physical description doesn't totally match, but if they ever turn that into a movie or series, I need it. She can also do more TV. I think that we'll talk about that today, but some of the best roles for women are in TV. And, even if it's just the lying little ladies, trashy prestige stuff, I love it. Let's give her a role in a TV series. A mini series would be great, but something that can make her, again, lean into that wicked side that I love so much.
Yes, that is the definitive side of Glenn that we always love. And I think there's also a kind of through line in what you're saying of just her in these authority figure roles,
Hmm.
that she just really is so commanding on screen and just kind of devours your attention, which I think, another role like this, especially now that she's almost 80 years old, I think seeing her in that kind of a role still, she could still do it like very easily and
Oh,
command that
yeah,
authority. Yeah, so
absolutely.
well, speaking of that, for those who have not already done so, last week we discussed the pilot of Damages. So please listen to that episode if you haven't already. But we went into the pre-production of all that. We went into the setup of the first season and the various storylines. Just a quick little refresher to kind of reset us for this conversation. We have Glenn as Patty Hewes, a ruthless litigator in New York City who owns her own firm, Hewes and Associates. Her latest case is a class action lawsuit against Arthur Frobisher, played by Ted Danson, a billionaire who encourages employees to invest in his company, only for him to sell his stocks and pocket the money, defrauding his employees. So Patty hires Ellen Parsons, played by Rose Byrne, who's fresh out of law school and eager to get to work. But as it turns out, Patty only hired Ellen because of her connection to a key witness, Katie. So we get that early glimpse of Patty's ruthlessness, and we get the future timeline flashes of Ellen's fiance, David, being dead in the bathtub, and Ellen being brought in for questioning. So the rest of the season is essentially about connecting those two timelines and exploring how Ellen and her fiance got to this point, with more than a few suggestions that Patty perhaps may have had a little something to do with it. Perhaps. But with all that said, Sophia, I would love to know your relationship to Damages, whether you were glued to the screen as I was at the time, and what you thought of this first season, especially on this go-round, and your thoughts on Glenn.
Well, I was very glued to the screen and
Yes.
I was watching so much TV at this time. I remember this summer also so vividly because it was the summer before my freshman year of high school, and Mad
Mm,
Men and Damages are both coming out. And I love both of these shows. Mad Men
yeah.
is famously my favorite TV show ever. And I also love a crime drama or a legal thriller. This was, I
Hmm.
would say, aside from reality TV, the main genre of television in my house growing up. We watched everything like Without a Trace, Cold Case, CSI, Criminal Minds, really all of that. But then
Wow.
there was something about Damages, like Boston Legal. I could go on and on, but there was something about Damages I think that felt just very exciting and different. And what I really like about it is that it has both what I'll call the prestige anti-hero drama side of it and a little bit of the CW teen drama flair in its DNA. And that is, I think, the perfect cross section for me, especially at the time when I was
Mm,
also watching things like Gossip Girl and One Tree Hill. And we are getting into that era of TV too, which was so huge for me. And I think for a lot of people like my age at the time. And I think what made Damages so cool and so fun for me at the time when I was watching it is that I love that we have a woman who is on par with Tony Soprano and that kind of like male anti-hero character that was really dominant in TV at the time and really in the evil character department. I thought that was
mm.
just that was so fresh, and the fact that you and Eric mentioned this too. Glenn was 60 when she took on this project. Like where
Yeah.
else do we see something like that? I think again, not only is it mostly, men in these types of roles, but a woman at her age, I think is also really groundbreaking. And then
Hmm.
also we have this like death quantity and the camp factor of something that feels like a show I would have watched on Freeform, formerly ABC Family. Like it just feels like it is again the perfect combination of those things. And I have to ask you this because I feel like you will remember it, but do you remember HughesAssociates.com?
No, I don't
Oh my
actually.
God. You could like go on. I feel like I'm like making this up, like it's a Mandela effect kind of thing. But you could go on this website each week and like click on clues from the episode. Again, a relic of the 2000s.
I don't even know if
But
I was that online at the time to have known that, but I don't
oh,
know.
Maybe
Yeah,
I sadly was.
that's
But yeah,
wild.
I don't
Yeah.
think it exists anymore, but I swear I remember just like going down the rabbit hole. And I think that yeah, this was just one of those shows that was just again such a fun watch at the time for me. And I
Wow.
think it also really you also talked about this with Eric on the pilot episode, but it reminded me when I was watching it this time a lot of what we'll get in something like How to Get Away with Murder, those like
Yeah.
Shonda Rhimes shows that come after that I think also have that very specific brand of, you know, great like courtroom drama or in the case of Scandal, like political drama, but they have those side plots that are very over the top that we
Right.
love. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did this rewatch strike you all these years later, almost 20 years?
Yeah, so this rewatch, I had a lot of fun because I think when you're watching it for the first time and you're watching it week to week, because I hadn't done a rewatch in between watching
Yeah.
it for the first time, right? So I think when you're watching it for the first time, you see those little clues in the timelines like you were talking about with the flash forwards and you're trying to piece everything together. And when you're rewatching it, I started to remember little things here and there from that first watch that was like, oh, yes, of course. Like that's how those ugly Statue of Liberty bookends come into play later on. And that's, you know, what this character, the reveal, I think, also of who plays certain characters, whether they're primary or important characters or side characters. We now have, I think, additional context for their
Yeah.
roles that they've had over the years. So that was really fun. But additionally, I mean, the big piece of Patty as a character is that she is playing chess while some of these characters are playing Candyland. I think Katie in particular, we'll talk about her,
Oh,
but
that poor girl.
that
Yeah.
poor girl. And so the fact that she has planned so much of this out multiple steps ahead, it's
Hmm.
fun to see those pieces fall into place and exactly what type of architecture she really has for this case that
Yeah.
no one else is really aware of. She is so selective with who she gives information to and who she lets in at different points. So I thought that was, I think, my favorite part of the rewatch was really just appreciating Glenn's performance and also just really getting to see how that character works.
Absolutely. I felt
Mhm.
the same way. Just
Yeah.
was such a rich rewatch for me. And sort of maybe, as you're saying too, a different mode of watching than I had done previously. I
Mhm.
was there in 2007
Yeah.
watching live every single week, just riveted by the
Uh-huh.
storytelling here. And sure, maybe I found some of the plotting far-fetched to
Oh
be
yeah.
diplomatic about it,
Hmm.
but it was just so delicious to me at the same time. Like, I was so transfixed by Glenn's performance in particular as the season went on. And I feel like this show is actually what kind of cemented me as a true super fan of hers, like getting the
Hmm.
chance to see her deliver this masterclass really in deception and villainy and like relentlessness week after week. It was just
Hmm.
it was such good food. Maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't the most nutritious food, but like I could not get enough of the stuff. I was eating it up every week.
Yeah, it's
And
fine.
yeah,
You know, it's like she has the canned Bud Light that one time. It's like she drinks her wine. She's like, you know, I just know if it's white or red. You know, sometimes that's how TV
exactly.
can be too.
Yes, that's all that matters. And yeah, I feel like I was locked into the psychological thriller part of it. That's really what grabbed me and kept me
Hmm.
sort of locked in. And there's just such a richness to these characters and how they treat each other. It's kind of like this study in human behavior at its worst in most cases,
Yeah.
which for some people I think makes for a bit of an uncomfortable watch. I shared last week my grandmother was not a fan of what she saw, but I was just obsessed with like the interplay here and just seeing that these people indulge in such selfish behavior and like try to outwit each other, which is why
Hmm.
there's a little bit of a, reality TV competition component as well, which may be
Yes.
why we responded to it in that way too,
I think
you know?
so. I did find myself thinking like, ooh, how would Patty do on Survivor? Because like so much
Yeah.
of this really is like that. It's not just what you know about the case itself. It's, you know, these little side relationships that they have that each character
Yeah.
really has with different witnesses and with each other and how Patty manipulates all of the people in her life, I kept thinking like, oh yeah, she's giving someone an apartment. Like, what would she do with a hidden immunity idol? This is very competition reality TV in so many ways. And I understand too how that could turn viewers off. Like it is, these are all characters with flaws and with vices, certainly, but I just, of course, eat that up. I love it.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, was watching it live, but there was that in that way there was a lot to process kind of and keep me guessing and have theories. I don't know if I was like logging onto the websites and reading theories per se, but like, you know, maybe that was I just felt like, oh my God, like how are these pieces going to connect to each other? So then binging it like this, as I did this past week, where I was watching 3 episodes a day over the course of a week, it was still riveting, but in a different way. You know, I feel like I gained so much of an appreciation of the writing here and just the construction, like the series of events actually that take us from point A, which is Ellen getting this job at Patty's firm, to point B, which is like at the end of the season with Ellen accused of murdering her fiance and Patty left shaken at her beach house and, you know, all the breadcrumbs along the way, and like to play with audience expectation sort of, and choosing when to dole out information and when to withhold information. I feel like it's actually very meta in that way that I hadn't really considered before this rewatch. The way Patty and her team are kind of shaping their case and create a certain perception, which, as Eric said last week, is a huge part of just what lawyers do. But also having that be kind of the narrative construction of the show itself, and how that also is creating a perception in your mind of how things might have gone down. But the reality may be far from what you initially perceived. You know, and that's what I really clung on to with this rewatch, is seeing that, like imagining the cork board in the writer's room with like the red string and like connecting each plot point, and then figuring out exactly when to reveal each thing to the audience.
Yeah, I think it's really, really smart in that way, because I think at first when you're watching it and you're introduced to that, like flash forward with the 2000s, like grainy Instagram filter look, I'll call it, you kind of think, you know, in the first couple of episodes when you're binging it, you just think like, okay, do they really think we forget about this? Like, are they just going to keep bringing up the same details over and over again? It almost feels repetitive, I think, in the beginning when you're going through each episode. But then I think it is actually like really smartly used, I think, as you're going through the season, because you're learning bits and pieces about Ellen's relationship with Tom, Ellen's relationship with Patty, what happened with her and David, why would she have, you know, been in Patty's apartment. You're learning all these things from that timeline and how they connect with the timeline of the show that we're watching. And I think too, it's really smart because if you think about someone like Frobisher and the types of people that Patty and her law firm are really going against, these are very public figures. She has a lot of people who go after her when they're not happy with how she wins her cases or how she ruins their lives and holds them accountable for their actions. So if these types of, you know, people are really public, then the way that information is withheld and revealed also, I think, needs to be really deliberate throughout the show. So I like that we're kind of on the same wavelength sometimes as the characters in the show, finding things out when they do. It's really smart.
Yeah. And also, just to reiterate, I don't want to repeat myself too much from what I already said last week, but Glenn in her performance here is also in a way kind of withholding at times in all the right places, but she is just electric, I think, from start to finish this season, and it gets richer and more complex and layered as it goes on, as we see more of Patty's schemes. And she's obviously so dynamic in those scenes where she's manipulating people and getting one over on these guys, or her relationship with Ellen, of course, which is this whole fascinating dynamic and how that changes. But it's also like when she's forced to improvise a little bit on the spot, like when someone or like something doesn't go quite as she was expecting, that I find actually most rewarding in her performance, to see like this woman who's so used to being in control, like just this master of her domain, now having to navigate her personal life with her son, who's very moody and difficult, or, you know, the very shocking event that happens at the end of episode 11 that just fully takes her by surprise, and it takes her a bit to get back to her normal self again. I think she's kind of showing how Patty is actually very hyper perceptive and hypersensitive in a way in
Yeah.
those moments, that she like feels things very deeply. And there are moments when she is quite quick to anger when
Hmm.
she isn't getting her way, but she also is compartmentalizing and like making sure that whatever happens, she will get away scot-free, and she'll, things will be taken care of.
Yeah,
And I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I think she can be really reactive, but she's never impulsive. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's so tricky about the performance that I think Glenn just nails in the best way. You're right. Like the scenes,
Mm.
obviously, where she's dressing down these powerful men, I can't get enough of them. I could watch just like 10 supercuts of them and just
Yes.
would be obsessed. It's just how I came to love this character. But it is
Hmm.
also in those scenes when I really gravitated this watch towards the scenes when she is using characters' personal lives to get what she wants at work. I thought that was really interesting because what we
Yeah.
learn about her early is that, she doesn't, as Tom says, like she doesn't want photos, like family photos around. She doesn't want you to personalize the office or your space. But then as the show and the season go on, right, she's
Mm.
suddenly, wanting to know more about Ellen's personal life. She wants to see those family photos, so she says. But it's
Yeah.
all because she wants to have a little bit of control and to test people. I think the scenes when she is testing people and in
Mm.
not just how it relates to the case, but in just how it relates to their own values and what they care about. It's sinister stuff, but
Yeah.
I love that from her. I think it's just such smart work.
Hmm. Well, before we get sort of further into this season, did
Hmm.
you have any just brief kind of thoughts on the pilot before we sort of get into things?
Yeah, I think we do just meet Patty in the best possible way, which is that she's on the phone with another lawyer and she's just going to town on him. We're seeing this confidence from her, but she's also, bringing up astrology. And obviously, I was instantly obsessed with her from that point. Glenn is a Pisces, so I think that's why Patty is a Pisces. And like Patty establishes the water sign domination here, I'm going to say, as a fellow water sign. But this woman is a Capricorn. This woman is a Capricorn. I have to say, that's just my personal
Yeah.
opinion. I just feel like, how dedicated she is to work, but she definitely has some water and fire in the rest of her chart. Just going to say that as a little aside.
Okay.
But again, what I love about this pilot too is when she,
Mm.
just to see how good she is at convincing the people around her of how good she is at her job and that she's looking out for them, whether it be
Right.
people at the firm or Frobisher's former employees who she's representing. She tells them high stakes litigation is a long and painful process. And you really do believe that she is in their corner, even though we also know from other conversations that yes, she is, but she wants to win this case. She wants to go after this man, whether it's to give these people what they deserve or it's just for her own personal gain. I don't think it's
Or
totally
both.
or both, right? And I
Yeah.
I like that it goes between those two things. And
Mm.
I don't know, I feel like she also just has some great lines here. She makes fun of Tom for being a vegan. Those are funny. She has just
Hmm.
great little lines here and there,
Yeah.
but I like how the pilot introduces her family dynamic, yes, and some of her
Hmm.
outside influences that might be creeping into this case, but also again just doing a really good job of establishing how Patty convinces people to join her and how she ultimately keeps them in her orbit. Everything from how
Yeah.
she speaks to Tom to how she goes to the wedding and just interrupts it and talks to
Yeah.
Ellen there. I think
Hmm.
it's such a smart pilot that highlights her performance, I think, so well, and the tone of the rest of the season.
Yeah. And just the way everything comes together at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
pilot to really
Yeah.
reveal Patty's true self. And we're getting that,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, just like right away in the pilot, being
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, this is who we're dealing with here. She will stop at
Yes.
nothing.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And she also has, I think, a really important line that I clocked on this rewatch that will come up later, really, I think, in her personal life, which is she tells Ellen, don't have kids, it ruins your ambition. Have wives,
Hmm.
you can leave them. she's quoting someone else there, but then she
Yeah.
says, kids are like clients. They want all of you all of the time.
Yeah.
And children, again, like I said, will come up in, I think,
Mm-hmm.
really painful ways for her
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the season.
Exactly. Well, let's get into the rest of the season now. We have
Yes,
so much to cover,
so
so we can't
much.
cover everything,
I
but
know.
just some of the highlights. Yeah. So, like I said, Patty has hired Ellen as a way of getting close to Katie, who could be this key witness to help her take down Frobisher. And so, when Patty does finally get in contact with Katie, I love how she's not entirely satisfied with her lack of candor, you could say. She
Mhm.
even tells Katie in this great sort of textbook Glenn manipulation way where she's just like, how old were you? I just turned 6 when I realized I was a good liar. You know,
Ugh.
like she's insisting on Katie just telling me the straight story here and like
Mhm.
asking what she's not telling her and feeling like Katie's timeline does not add up because there's this other person, Gregory Molina, played by Peter Facinelli, a staple of the late 2000s, Peter Facinelli,
Mhm.
who Katie had a one-night stand with in Florida back in 2002, and he was somewhat involved with Frobisher and his lawyer, Ray Fisk, played by Zelshko Ivanek, and he ends up being like this real source that Patty actually needs, but we established from early on that really no one here can be trusted. Like, it's this whole modus operandi really of the series of like Patty telling Ellen at one point that there's like this one most important lesson that you can take from me, essentially: trust no one.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And I really like how we see this from Patty and through Glenn's performance here when she's speaking with Katie, which is that
Hmm.
she has this, when she manipulates Ellen to leave the office so she can talk to Katie alone. Love that.
Right.
But as she's talking to Katie, she has this like she appears cold sometimes, I think, as a character, really often. But
Hmm.
I think that comes with the territory of her position. But when
Yeah.
she's just sitting on the couch with Katie, she does exude this, I won't say full, warmth, but there is a little bit of that there where she's, just
Hmm.
sitting with her. They're not sitting
Yeah.
across a desk or a table. Like they're just sitting together on this couch. So she's establishing, like, you can trust me. You can tell me this. And she has this kind of like, I think she's understanding like her role and the perception of her as a woman in that
Hmm.
position. But then the second she realizes Katie's lying to her, and she confronts her about it. She has that great line that you said. And she also says, until you stop lying, you're not my witness and you're not my problem. So good.
Period.
So good. Period. And
I know.
yeah, I love how we're starting to see like how she's really working this case like step
Hmm.
by step. And knowing what we know about what what Patty did to Saffron, it's
Hmm.
crazy that she even is like having this conversation with her and bringing her
I
in
know.
there, right? But that's what she needs, and it's really just one piece at a time, one step at a time, one character at a time until she gets exactly what she needs.
Right. And because, she proves to be right because
Mm-hmm.
we get that reveal that Katie is now talking and started talking to Gregory
Yeah.
again. So
Mm-hmm.
more than just a one night stand.
Yep.
Meanwhile, one of Frobisher's private investigators is suggesting the idea of like, let's just kill Katie. Like,
Yeah.
it's very high stakes right from the jump. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of this is like the show is really teaching you how to watch it in a way as it goes along. Like, it trusts you to keep up with this web of characters and their
Mm-hmm.
relationships to each other and what might be motivating them to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what really is sort of the guiding principle of the show is that psychological sort of mind game going on pretty much at all times. And it is
Mm-hmm.
very character centric. It's people making choices, trying to outwit each other, like I said, outsmart each other. And I feel like I appreciate the writing doesn't get too bogged down in the procedural aspects of the
Yes.
case, the kind of
Mm-hmm.
painstaking work that this would actually require. It sort of has an eye for character first, and we get
Mm-hmm.
all these different combinations of characters throughout the season. And to maybe continue like the chess metaphor,
Yeah.
like some are queens, some are kings, bishops, and
Mm-hmm.
others are just pawns, like Katie
Yes.
here.
Ugh.
But, there's always that underlying tension of like whether or not to trust the other person, and this sort of unspoken knowledge in most cases that there is a game being
Mm-hmm.
played, which is probably, again, what appealed to me at the time, is that sportsmanship quality to it.
Yeah, that's definitely what appealed to me too,
Yeah.
that game part of it. And you're right about the writing. I think some
Mm,
shows can get really bogged down by the specific industry, like using way too
right.
much jargon, making it a bit
Yeah,
too high-minded. But this one also, it doesn't do that, but it also doesn't totally dumb it down. Like it
exactly.
keeps, I think, a lot of those smart details in there while also making it character focused is what makes you fly through this show. Like that's what makes it
Fly
so
through.
so
Yes.
watchable. And I think as you're learning about the other characters too, there is a part of me, I do have to say though, and this is just a personal thing, that whenever Glenn is not on the screen, I am a little less interested, naturally. I'm like, let's get back to Patty. I want to see her and hear
Sure.
her. But I still, I think the other characters and the other performances are interesting enough where you still are, I don't know, engaged in the other plot lines that are going on and how it all connects. And I think part of that
Yeah.
for me too was just wanting, I mean, I wanted to be like with Patty. I was rooting for her. So I wanted to just make sure again that these characters aren't up to anything that they could outsmart her on.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually surprised on this rewatch how much Frobisher we got.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it's almost like a true equal, kind of like bouncing back and
Uh-huh.
forth between the two, him and
Mm-hmm.
Ray Fisk.
Yeah.
So I also really love the deposition scene that we get. I think it's in like the
Mm-hmm.
fourth episode where Ray
Yes.
Fisk is grilling Katie about like how it's possible that this guy she claims to have seen in Palm Beach was actually not there in Palm Beach, that he was in Atlantic City that night. And this is
Mm-hmm.
because Katie has testified that like, just like linking it to this broker who was actually Gregory fed that information to her kind of
Mm-hmm.
as just like something to give her, even though it's false. And Katie realizing she's been lied to. And I love how the camera just is like trained on Glenn's face as that is playing
Yes.
out. And you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing how flawlessly she is playing the long game here. And she is, again, playing with perception. I think, again, that's that meta thing that the show is really like making it that like, oh, Katie really could be the key witness. But as it turns out, Patty has kind of set this whole thing up so
Mm-hmm.
that Frobisher and Ray Fisk will think that they have maybe gotten one over on Patty, right? And thus
Yes.
maybe withdraw the settlement offer. But this was all part of Patty's plans to begin with, because she knows more than she's letting on. She wants to pursue this in a trial setting. And just Patty, the way Glenn plays her, like she has such a great poker face in these moments, because
Mm-hmm.
on the surface, she's like trying to portray that she's like a bit bothered that Katie is not living up to what she hoped.
Yeah.
But in reality, this is kind of all an act. And
Yeah.
there's just a focus in her eyes as the camera really is like going in on her that indicates that, yeah, this is all kind of going according to plan. As wild as it is that she is seemingly 20 steps ahead of everyone else.
Yes. Yeah.
She's just that predictive of human behavior, I guess.
She really is. And this is one of those scenes that reminded me of Dangerous Liaisons a bit and
Yes.
how the Marquis operates, because she has, I think, I love the deposition scene and I love any scenes that really relate to her,
Yeah.
meeting with anyone who has, been deposed or subpoenaed, or with Fisk. I think those are great scenes, just seeing her get to work. And I think before that scene, getting the mock deposition scene where like she's showing Katie, she's showing her that like this is going to be really tough. And I think she's also
Right.
testing out just how she feels about her too. Like, is this going to work? How can I use her? If she's going to act like this just from a mock deposition, what good really is she to me in the rest of this
Yeah.
case? And yeah, I think like Glenn's performance in that deposition scene is so good, and it's so smart that the camera fixates on her, because she, in that scene too, like everyone else, I think like they all assume that Patty didn't know this, that this is new information to her too, but we know as viewers that could not be right. That's not
Right.
how she is. And I think Glenn does such an amazing job of not letting the audience really know that, even if we suspect that. She's such a good
Right.
actress, yes, as Glenn Close, but also as Patty. And I think again,
Mm-hmm.
that's really difficult to portray. And it connects to, I think, later in, I think it's episode 8 or episode 7, 6 or 7, when she's talking about to Ellen, like how she views men in the world. And it's always like,
Yeah.
you need to convince them that it was their idea, that they're the one who knows better. It doesn't matter if it was your idea or not, really. Like, it should be your idea, but it's in their biology, she says, that they need to feel that it was their decision, that it was their doing. And we're really seeing her do that there with Fisk.
Have you found that bears out in the real world, Sophia?
Oh my gosh.
The
Yeah.
women having to make men think it's their idea.
Always. In
You know,
every aspect of my life.
Feels true to life.
Corporate America, personal relationships. Yeah. I mean, my favorite's when she's like, most men can't handle an ambitious woman. Make sure you find one who can. Thanks, Patty. I've been trying. I'll keep trying. I need your guidance.
Yes, we all need a Patty in our lives.
Yeah,
in
we
some
do.
degree or another.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm wishing for the right thing there, but alas.
Yeah, it's fine. Listen, she's in New York. You'll
I'll
bump
find
into
her
at some point. Yeah. Anyway, yes, from there we're learning more key information about how like Gregory owned stock in Frobisher's company and sold it the same day as Frobisher, so indicating he was in on it to some degree. There's also George Moore, played by character actor Peter Reichert, who is this SEC official who's kind of playing both sides, essentially wanting to cover his own ass. And he has a past with Frobisher and like was maybe working with him, or at least going easy on him, presumably because they've made this unspoken deal. But now there's this trial and he wants to like make sure he doesn't get dragged into anything. It's very messy. We also get this revelation that like Frobisher has actually been working quite intimately with Larry, one of the representatives for the clients in this case, this older guy, like I think he was a janitor working for him. And he's been like feeding all this info to Frobisher about the settlements and what Patty's been saying in exchange for Frobisher basically making it worth his while. And even like Frobisher says he'll double what he promised beforehand. It's sort of this running theme of everyone looking out for themselves, even if it means screwing over others or just straight up lying. And I think that's another thing that the show really captures well in this first season, is how desperate a lot of these people are to just sort of bury the past in that way and sort of just move on. But it doesn't work that way because, yes, some of them maybe did get caught in the crosshairs, but like there are hundreds of employees here who lost their life savings, who Frobisher screwed over, and they can't move on. And it's because of the actions of these very selfish people who want to just bury it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the scenes with Larry do just like at the beginning, like made me really sad because it's like, oh, here's this person who lost everything, who is like being intimidated still by Frobisher. Like, yeah, he shouldn't be feeding him this information, but you just think in the back of your mind, like, oh, this is not going to work out well for you. Patty is going to find out if you don't trust her. Like, this is going to backfire. And we have that scene when she goes to visit him and is like, basically like, I will be watching you. Like, if you make a purchase like this, I will know. I will be watching you. And you're like, oh my God. Like, she, again, not going to go well. But these, again, people in power, they have their own, their own goals and what they're trying to accomplish and stepping over people to get there. Patty certainly does it. But at the end of the day, it's like, she's definitely the lesser of two evils when it comes to Frobisher and what he has been doing and what he continues to do. Also, this man is a mess. He is a full Trumpian Christmas adventurer chaos agent who is just like every scene that this man is in. I'm like, Ted Danson, like, this is not Sam from Cheers. Obviously, this is not how, acting works. But I'm like, I need you to get it together. Please.
Yeah. It is truly wild to watch Ted in this kind of a role. And really just, I don't know. It feels a little bit also like the classic thing in the 2000s, I think, that is like, this actor who's more warmly received in these comedic roles doing something dark and edgy and kind of like getting attention for that. I don't know. It's just an interesting blast from the past to see people kind of probably were very shocked to see him in this kind of role and like doing blow and calling for murders to happen on
Yeah.
his behalf. So yeah, but he's very good at it. Very, very surprisingly, and really channels that sort of shark-like businessman who is just desperate to move forward. Like at the end of the season, he just wants to be done with it and like buy some land.
Hmm.
And like
Yeah.
that's very well captured of what these guys are like, I think.
I think so too. And he is really, I mean, it's good that we have an antagonist like that against Patty because they have a similar quality in the sense that whenever they walk into a room, before they've even said anything, you feel it. Like when he walks
Yes.
into like Katie's empty restaurant space and they're
Right.
really the only people there. Like you feel that from him, like, okay, there's some dark energy here. You feel that power that he has over people in any kind of one-on-one meeting between him and the author who's going to write that book about him, or
Oh my God.
which is so funny, or another lawyer. Like you just
Yeah.
feel that kind of sleazy New Yorker power that he has. And I
Hmm.
think these scenes are in really their strong contrast to similar scenes that we have with Patty and the people in her orbit. And they operate in such different ways. They use their power so differently and manipulate people. And I don't know, she has so much more finesse when she does it.
Yeah.
So she's more fun to watch, of course.
Right. I will say there are elements of the Arthur Frobisher and what he chooses to do in this metaphorical chess game that are just like, how did this man get to be like a billionaire?
Right.
Because so his behavior is like full like bull in a china shop most of the time. Just
Yes.
like not like nothing tactical about any of this. Just like kill them, give them money, just like whatever. And
Yeah.
it's so messy.
It's like I
So
said, he's a mess.
yeah, yeah. But from there, I mean, things get more complicated when this SEC person, George, starts to contact Ellen
Hmm.
privately when he tells her, like, he wants to give her information on in a sort of an off the record capacity. I
Hmm.
feel like this is sort of when Ellen eventually is starting to come into her own, taking on a much more direct sort of disposition. Like, she
Hmm.
even, like, aesthetically as she's tying her hair back into this tight bun at a
Hmm.
certain point and like taking on a much more stoic sort of sensibility, and is really emerging, like I think in that like episode 9 or 10 area when she has those conversations with George Moore and like going out on her own, even defying Patty at one point and talking to
Hmm.
him. Even like she threatens George at one point to like find out more about his connection to Frobisher if he doesn't help her further. And he's like even speaking with like I think it's a former coworker of George's.
Hmm.
Like she gets pretty bold, and I think the show is sort of telling us, not in a heavy-handed way, that she is enjoying the power that this gives her in a
Hmm.
sense. Like she wants to prove herself, but also she is sort of mimicking the way Patty does business, without fear, and is sort of enjoying the high of that to a certain degree. And I think
Hmm.
that's where Rose Byrne really is, again, coming into her own as this character and showing how Ellen is sort of riding the line between being bold, but also having that boldness sometimes come from a place of like slight performative sort of play acting to a degree and like an impatience,
Hmm.
right? Like this is a
Yeah.
woman who's right out of law school and is a first year associate, and it feels like a lot of what she's doing here is like skipping all of the grunt work that she would have to do as a
Hmm.
first year associate and just like getting into it with all of these things and the experience of someone older than her essentially.
Hmm. I really like those scenes too, and I think
Mm.
what's smart about the way that Ellen is written and the way that Rose plays her is that at the beginning she never seems like shy or like super. I think like she's not really hanging in the back. Like she is a go-getter. She wants to do this, but she is so different from Patty. Like there's just, and obviously any first year associate would be different from
Mm.
this high power attorney who everyone is afraid of working for yet wants to work for desperately. That's the
Right.
idea. And I like how the show sets up first that we're really getting to see the first part of this with her relationship with Gregory Molina when she's going to speak with him privately, and how those conversations are framed. It's very different
Mm.
because he obviously has that connection to Katie. so to her personal life. So she feels like I
Right.
think she can have this in there. But she does something with him that is so funny. And it reminded me so much of Patty when she goes and talks to him. And she at first just seems like she's just like another girl who's talking to him. And she's like, "Oh, you're a consultant." One of my friends dated a consultant. He broke her heart. And then she describes exactly what was happening with Gregory and
Yeah.
Katie. And it's
I
that little
know.
bit of manipulation that Patty does. Like that's how she
Hmm.
gets into these conversations sometimes. But then when we pivot to later on, when she goes off on her own with George Moore, that's someone who like she has again like found on her own really. She's nurturing this relationship when at first Patty told her like, I think that's a dead end. Like you need to do this. But if Tom says it's a good idea, go for it. And there I think is where we really see her start to emulate Patty, yes, but also become this force against Patty at the same time, possibly. They're starting to
Yeah.
introduce that idea in our heads. And whether or not we believe that Ellen is a formidable opponent for someone like Patty or not, it's still introducing that idea, which I think is really fun.
Right. Well, I mean, there's that electric scene between Patty and Ellen, like right after she's done all that, where Ellen comes forward to Patty about going out and meeting with George again, even though
Yeah.
Patty like expressly forbid it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellen is sort of arguing, like, "Oh, I thought that this, and this." And Patty's like, "Thought? Who told you to think? You don't have license
Love
to
that.
think.
So good.
you, you have jeopardized the only serious lead we still have. How could you be so stupid?" You
Oh,
love whenever Glenn gets into that thunderous tone in her voice, you know?
yes.
And
It's
Ellen
the
just
best.
deadpans back to her, "I'm so sick of your bullshit." And Patty's reaction is just like this kind of like amused anger in a sense of
Mm-hmm.
like obviously telling her to get out and not to come back, but it's that is riveting.
It is so riveting. And her delivery of, "What did you say to me?" Oh,
Hmm.
it's so good. She, like, Glenn has this delivery, like the way that she uses her voice. Obviously, that comes from her theater background too, but reminds me of Queen Eleanor Audley, who, of course, voices
Wow.
Maleficent.
uh,
But she has this kind of like rich quality in her voice where she knows
hmm.
exactly like when to raise it and how. And it
Right.
has this sophistication to it, which you would hear from a woman in her position and in, I
Exactly.
think, this type of New York office. It's so funny, like you said, but there's also something like she still views Ellen as like her pet, like
Hmm.
her child she brought in under her wing, right? Like her sort of like a
Right.
surrogate daughter. So she talks to her in that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think also Ellen is genuinely annoyed because she feels like she's proved herself. She feels like she
Yeah.
hasn't really done anything wrong. It's all to benefit the case in the long run. But
Mm-hmm.
Patty doesn't see it that way. Like, Patty's always thinking several steps ahead, as we know. And when someone goes out of line of like what the steps are that she has plotted out in her
Mm-hmm.
mind, I think it does unnerve her, you know?
Yeah.
I also love after that how Rose plays the like when she goes home to David and says she was fired,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, I feel fine.
Yeah.
Because like, like I said, she knows she did all she could do. It's not like she was fired for incompetence or whatever.
Right.
It's just, to her, it's like Patty's ego is essentially that caused her to be
Mm-hmm.
fired. And I was like seeing Rose kind of get to be a little more animated
Mm-hmm.
in those moments, because normally, like a lot of the scenes up to this point, she is very serious minded and just kind of doing what needs to be done and kind of reactive to Patty's energy.
Yeah.
But in these moments, she's kind of like coming into her own in a way, and is
Mm-hmm.
like almost surprised at herself of being like, "I'm actually fine with this."
Yeah. Yeah. It has to feel a little bit freeing to her too, especially because I mean she at this point too, Patty has been trying to drive this wedge between Ellen and Tom too. Like she's just like playing all of these mind games with them
Yeah.
at work. And I think the relationship that Ellen has with Tom is really important to her. But for Patty, it's like she has to have two people who are loyal to her primarily. Like they can't
Hmm.
be doing their own thing together. And so she's
Right.
also dealing right with that. And I agree with you about Rose's performance. Like she's so fun in roles like, in Spy and Bridesmaids. And If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, when she could push it a little further and, go a little bit bigger. And I like that
Yeah.
throughout the season, as Ellen, as a character, becomes more confident, she gets to, I think, have more of those fun little moments where she can really go there.
Yeah, exactly. And so from there, I think we get sort of a fascinating convergence of Gregory delivering his confession about
Mm-hmm.
what he knows about this case and his involvement with Ray Fisk and all this stuff. This is after Gregory has essentially grown tired of running. He's gone back to like hide out at Katie's place after he's been subpoenaed by Patty's office. And he's just kind of like, basically his days are numbered, essentially, is what
Mm-hmm.
he's feeling, and he just wants to be done with it. He gives Katie like a 6-figure check, even like essentially to make up for lying to her and causing her so much trouble.
Yeah.
And then that same day, he takes Katie's new dog out on a walk, and the dog runs into the street, and he runs after it, of course, and a car comes barreling down the street and smashes into him, killing him instantly. I mean, I think this part's a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
You could say, perhaps, just a very convenient timing of how this
Mm-hmm.
all goes down. Like, how could the hitman behind the wheel really react that quickly, even? It's a little silly, right?
It is.
But
It's so funny. Like, how are
yeah,
I feel like every scene with a dog is very nerve-wracking in this show because
yes,
of what we
oddly enough.
experienced in the first episode. I'm like,
I
anytime
know.
you see a dog, I'm like, this dog is gonna get hit by a car. No, it's
Hmm.
Gregory.
Yeah.
But yeah, that scene it's wild. It's like, how long was that the hitman ready,
Right.
waiting in the car for him to just happen to run across the street?
Exactly. Yeah, very, very quick on his feet, this
Mhm.
hitman. But yeah. But what's really brutal about this is that Ray Fisk is the one who essentially provided this key information of where Gregory was
Mhm.
so that he could be killed,
Yeah.
because Ray Fisk knows that Gregory is a liability and that he will be a key witness, like not Katie, who
Mhm.
could actually take down Frobisher. And I think this is where Zelchko Ivanik's performance really emerges as one
Mhm.
of the highlights of the season. I just
Mhm.
love seeing him really emerge over the course of that first season as, I think, definitely for me, the standout supporting actor, even over Ted Danson.
Mhm.
The way he carries just the exhaustion of his lack of sleep and the feelings he's harboring. And there's that scene in one of the middle episodes where like it's in a flashback of him talking to Gregory, and they've had a bit of a, connection going on, and he's telling Gregory that like you reach a certain point in life where it's too late to change.
Mhm.
And like there's such pain and regret in his voice that really breaks your heart, even though ostensibly he's supposed to be kind of like the opposition in all of this, and we're
Yeah.
maybe not supposed to be rooting for him. But he is clearly dealing with so much internal strife of clearly being in the closet and loving this young man, and he's not reciprocating those feelings back. And there's just a lot of pain in Zelchko's performance that I really, really connected to.
Yeah, the reason why I like that performance and the writing of the character is that at the beginning, like, we are so familiar, I think, with the like smarmy Southern lawyer type. Like,
Yes.
that is just such a classic trope that we see in legal dramas. So I think when you first meet him as this adversary to Patty and in the case, you honestly, you don't like him at first. Like, how would you, right? That's just how
Hmm.
he's charted. And he feels like this really just kind of, yeah, this high power attorney who's defending Frobisher of all people, right? But as it
Right.
goes on with his performance, you feel, I think, with Fisk more than any other character, like the intense weight of being in a position like that for so long, what that can do to you. And also, I feel through that performance, the anxiety that comes, right, not only with, okay, if Gregory is going to be a key witness, what that does to him professionally, because that also shows how Fisk was involved in all of this with the stocks, and
Hmm.
how he was the one who was primarily involved with Gregory, but then also his personal life, how that's going
Right.
to blow up for him, and you just like you feel sick watching him. It is that he's so good
Mhm.
at conveying anxiety, and he's a really heartbreaking character. So I think the way that Zelchko does that throughout the season is just that was the performance, I agree, that like really moved me of all
Yeah.
the supporting male characters. And the oh my god, the teeth dreams. Oh, like even though I knew they were coming, still
Yeah.
startled me every single time. Like, okay, we're going here.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And actually, I was reading that they initially hadn't planned to make him such a big character
Mm,
in this first season, but they just loved what they were seeing from Zelchko in those early episodes that they beefed up his role. And now it's like you can't imagine this first season without his presence being
yeah.
so, active in all of this and
Yeah.
really kind of a catalyst to how things would spiral into the finale.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just to sort of keep continuing on that track a little bit, when Ray Fisk informs Frobisher that George Moore has been feeding information to Patty and Ellen, that's where Frobisher arranges a hit on George. I mean, the bloodshed at this point is just insane. Like, again, I don't know how these people think they can keep getting away with this, like this compounding crime after crime, murder after murder.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you have to wonder truly how these people can sleep at night, even if they do win in the end. And that's part of why there's this recurring theme of Ray Fisk literally not being able to sleep at night.
Right.
But it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens. Ellen gets in the car to meet with George again, and she sees him dead from a gunshot wound.
Oh my God.
You
Yes.
know, and that's such a shocking scene, I think. And I don't think there's even like dramatic music or like stingers like the show usually does. It
Mm-hmm.
just has this sort of like eerie quiet to it, almost like a banality that I found really striking, of
Mm-hmm.
just her getting in the car and this man is dead with like blood gushing out of his head. And just like, how do you go on from that?
Yeah. How do you go on from that? You have to be so terrified. And the fact that she's just like, there you are, like, I'm gonna get in the car and then he's dead. It's like
Yeah.
all of these people are dying. And like it's a TV show, so it's fine. Like I know it doesn't have to be fully realistic all the time.
Yeah.
But how would you like go back to your apartment or like even you can want to continue on this case? But at the
Right.
same time, I think what is good about it of all of the bloodshed and these crazy encounters is that it does connect really well, I think, to the flash forward with Ellen. So it's telling you like, okay, like there is more to this than we thought at the beginning. Like she with this, murder of David in the bathtub, which is very dramatic, and of course that murder weapon lying there that we see. But I feel like it shows you like, oh, no one is safe. Like this could be anyone. And it's probably
Yeah.
connected to Frobisher because anytime a character has a violent end, except for Saffron, he's the one who's really at fault.
Yeah, it's true. It's wild to me that he thinks he could keep getting away with all this
Yeah.
somehow. George does have that major evidence on him of Ray's very close relationship to Gregory, which includes insider trading and like, giving him the stock and telling him to sell on the same day that Frobisher did, plus all the personal life stuff. And I love when Ellen brings that to Patty, and Patty's kind of like, Ellen, this is blackmail. Like, what you're doing is trying to get Ray Fisk to agree to a deal in exchange for like, not having to disclose these crimes. And also, obviously, the other part of it being Ray having feelings for Gregory and their
Mm-hmm.
closeness, and Ray doesn't want that coming to light because married with a wife. So, like you said, it would ruin his personal and professional life
Mm-hmm.
if any of this were to come to light. But it's sort of like, hey, Ellen, like, as long as you're aware of this, what we're doing here, you may think you won't stoop to my level, basically, is what she's saying. But like,
Mm-hmm.
here you are asking
Yeah.
me to do so. And there's just kind of this weird sort of like smugness, I think, in a way that Glenn plays it that's really delicious, being like,
Mm-hmm.
see, like, I knew you couldn't resist this either.
Mm-hmm. I love that scene. And yeah,
Mm,
anytime Glenn has a moment like that where like she is just, I think, reminded and she's willing to remind others that like she's not the only evil one here. Like she's not the only one who's playing these mastermind type games with everyone. And
yeah.
I love how throughout the season she is bringing up again and again, like if characters ask her, like when Ellen will ask her like, do you regret what we did, or if there's like, how are you feeling about something we did, like Patty is always like, in that instance, fine with it for the most part in these earlier scenes. And then we
Yeah.
start to see later, it's like, even if characters are saying they're not okay with something or saying that they wouldn't do something, like Ellen, for instance, or even Tom, like they will ultimately. Patty is just the most upfront about it. And that's, I think, what's so cool also about Glenn's performance is that, yes, she is lying and hiding things behind the scenes, but when people call her out on things, I like when she chooses to say, like, yeah, I did that. I manipulated you. I wanted you out of
What
here.
now?
What
Right.
about it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so smart and so fun
Hmm.
to watch from her.
Yeah. That's why people respect her and
Mm-hmm.
fear her.
Yes,
She really toes the line
she
well,
sure
you
does.
know? Right? And well, I mean, from there, that's where things really unravel in such a almost Shakespearean way, I
Mm-hmm.
find. And like, not to be too dramatic about it, but it truly, like, it left me shaken when I first watched it. And it still just bowls me over watching it all these years later when Patty and Ray have this meeting in her office.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, this is blackmail, what you're doing here. And they're agreeing in a way that's like, yeah, it is. I'm sorry it has to be this way, but that's what is going on here. Because she
Mm-hmm.
also does, I think, have some genuine affection for Ray. Like, they kind
Mm-hmm.
of go back a while, and a
Yeah.
respect for his tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she truly does love sparring with him, which is why she's offering this sort of lifeline
Mm-hmm.
of telling him to essentially, like, basically forfeit the case and to lose on purpose,
Yeah.
that it'll all blow over in a year or so, and then maybe you can come work with me. And just the vulnerability that Zelchko is displaying in that scene, I find to be so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like I said, like we've been saying, like on the surface, like here's this shady lawyer we're talking about here who did something illegal, but he really is humanizing him, especially in that 11th episode, and shows that a lot of this, almost all of it, was done out of affection and care for Gregory all those
Yeah.
years ago, and that his feelings did go unrequited. And it's this horrible feeling of realizing that you have hit a dead end, essentially,
Yeah.
and in your life, in many respects, essentially. And for him, the only way out is truly out.
Yeah.
And so he leaves the office and then comes back like 15, 30 seconds later and closes the door and tells her that he always wanted to work for her, and shoots himself in the head.
Ugh.
It's horrific. I have never gotten that image out of my mind, like
No.
20 years later,
Mm-hmm.
and him just stay lying there dead, and his lifeless eyes are staring right at Patty slash the camera. It's oof.
Yeah, it's horrifying. It really is an image you can't get out of your head. And I think episode 11 is like, when I think back on season one, I think I mean, Glenn is fabulous in every episode, but episode 11 does stand out to me just as probably the best in the season when I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it. What I also really like about it is that, like, they go way back, like you said, but she does this thing that is very like cutting to people that is hard to watch. I think, especially in this scene when we see the end of Ray, because she says to him, like, you're a Baptist, right? Ray, repent. Like, she says that to him,
Repent.
which is so,
Yes.
oh, so it's amazing drama. I love it. Very
Mm-hmm.
theatrical.
Yes.
But she
Mm-hmm.
she does this to people that when she knows someone, she uses things against them that she knows. And it's even like
Yep.
earlier when they're about to go on TV together, and we have that scene of them looking in the mirror when they're getting their makeup done, and
Yeah.
she's like, we both have deep set eyes. But Glenn does this little thing where it's almost she's putting on a little bit of an accent to sound like him.
Yes.
It's
I noticed
so
that too.
so
Mm-hmm.
smart. It's so good
Yep.
because it's her saying again, like, I know you, and also
Mm-hmm.
I know how to get under your skin. And so for this like final scene between the two of them, you also then, like, I can't get that image out of my head. And then I think we know from there too why this has the effect that it does on Patty, why this is something that she won't
Yep.
be able to get out of her head. And that little blood spatter on her shoe that we've seen earlier through other episodes,
Yeah.
and then we see, like, oh, this is where it's from. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to watch, but it's great television.
Yeah, it really is. You can't look away from it,
Mm-hmm.
tragically.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like that's where the literal and metaphorical damage
Mm-hmm.
comes into play here, the collateral damage of like the idea of the way these people take advantage of each other and try to get ahead and try to outsmart each other. But in the end, there is carnage involved when it's this high stakes. And yeah, Glenn plays the reaction to that moment in a way that I have rarely seen her do before. Just that kind of like life-altering shock. It's the kind of shock that you never truly shake. Like you said, like that's an image that will haunt Patty Hewes for the rest of her life.
Yeah. I haven't seen that type of reaction from Glenn really in anything else I've watched of hers. It does stand out really in her filmography. And I think what she does that I think is just so perfect to show like she really gets Patty, and she always talks about character, and I think she has such a deep understanding and care for her characters no matter who they are. But I think what we really see there is like, okay, this is a woman who can be rattled, there are things that aren't, she can't just brush off her shoulder. Like there are things that are going to affect her really dramatically. And I think the way that we see her, like when she is like completely shaken or she's just stunned and can't really, do anything about it, that's when we're seeing something so different from her and from what we've seen from Patty from the rest of the season. It's such a great performance.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know.
I mean, it's legendary stuff she's doing just in this first season alone.
Yeah.
And then that's where Ellen is forced to see yet another dead body after Patty calls her to the office, right? Mm-hmm. And she discovers Ray there. First of all, she doesn't even like get like a introductory hello from Patty. She just has to walk in and see it herself. Mm-hmm. And then Patty's just like standing behind the door or something. It's just, girl, what are you doing?
I know.
But it is just like, it's one battle after another, you could say.
It sure is.
And pretty soon she'll have to see David dead in a bathtub. I mean, it's wild. But yeah, Patty's entrusting her to make sure no one ever knows what he was doing there, because it could implicate her if like the blackmail came out. So she asks Ellen to put the evidence somewhere safe. And this to me is also a very clear indication of trust between the two of them, when it feels like Patty is acting on instinct and reacting in real time to this new variable. But I think it's also probably no mistake either that she is asking Ellen to take it. It's not Patty that is going to hide it.
Right.
So perhaps Ellen might take the fall, and that might not be so bad, Mm-hmm. But it's also just like so despicable to me too, after the fallout of Ray's suicide, just how everyone just covers their ass. Like Patty lying about Ray coming to her with the settlement offer or something. And Frobisher, his best associate really says like, I don't really have any explanation why Ray would do this. Mm-hmm. Knowing full well they had a conversation earlier that day where Ray called him cryptically and said, it's over.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I don't know. These are the things that really get under my skin of just like, the man is dead.
Yeah.
The way people act around this is just like so self-interested in a way that makes me queasy.
Me too. It's like your company, the idea of like your company doesn't care about you in the end. Like your work doesn't care about you. It's really sad. It is and upsetting. And yeah, when I think there's so much to it also of like what it says about Ellen, that she is willing to come back after Patty has fired her too, like the hold that she still has over her, but also that Patty knows what that signals to anyone watching. If someone who no longer works for you was seen at those late hours that one night.
Yeah, exactly. Her mind.
Truly.
But I also just love how it all comes together by the end in a way that feels perhaps not relatively plausible, but in a way that makes sense with the pieces we have, with how things end up with David in the bathtub, and how Katie, who comes back in towards the end, would find this incriminating tape that Gregory had made confessing everything and want to hand it in person to Ellen. But Ellen is not there because David and Ellen just had a fight about like how she's putting her career basically above their relationship, and how like you've changed and all this stuff that's very much like a darker version of the Devil Wears Prada conversation of like, Andy and her horrible boyfriend of being like, oh yeah, I don't like you this way, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's what leaves David alone in their apartment. Meanwhile, Frobisher has found out about Katie having the tape, and what does he do, of course, but, just
what he does best.
Do what he always does is, get the hitman to go after her. And so Katie is, of course, traced to Ellen and David's place. And that is what leads to the hitman taking David out because he's looking for this incriminating tape. And that's what leaves him dead in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like so intricately plotted in a way that's just like, you know how people talk about like the La La Land Moonlight mix up with with Envelope Gate at the Oscars, and how it was like this particular set of circumstances where if even one part of that was different, that mix up would not have happened.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically what I felt watching this too. It's this very unfortunate butterfly effect, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually traces back to, I mean, Katie more or less says it in the finale after David's dead, of being like, I should have never accepted money from Frobisher, because like 5 years later, it would very indirectly lead to David's unfortunate death, her brother.
Yeah.
Wild.
Oh, just the ripple effect. Like you said, everything that happens, like it's far-fetched like for us, but it makes sense. I think it does somehow make sense in the realm of the show,
world of damages,
right?
yes,
In that
exactly.
world. Yeah.
Yes.
And I have to say though, it drives me crazy when this happens in shows, and I understand why it does. And I think it'll work out in the long run for them, and it does. But when David finds the tape, why are you telling her so many details in this voicemail?
I know.
It just like kills me every time. I mean, I guess it's good that he said like it's in a safe space, it's in a safe place.
Yeah.
But I want to shake these characters sometimes when they do that, and I feel like it's so funny. And this is definitely just because it's a it's a TV show, but it's always funny to me like how much he knows about this case. Like I feel like she would have to be a little bit more tight-lipped about the things that are going on with Frobisher.
Yeah, well, listen, she's excited. She's a first-year associate, and this is a very dramatic case, as it turns out, with multiple dead bodies. So, you can't blame her for being a little loose-lipped.
That's true.
Yes. But also, I think in the end, like the way we have Ellen kind of more or less sort of like agreeing in a sense of like, I did sort of kill my fiance in like an indirect way.
Yeah.
Just by being involved in this case, that is what led to him being dead. Because if you would still be alive if I never had this job. Right. Of course, it's not really her fault, but it's hard not to think that way, given the circumstances.
I think she feels too like that's when she's just exhausted and done with everything too. Like I feel like she's really at that point, like feeling the weight of everything from the relationship with Patty that she has and how that has affected her and drained her, and how like it also reminds me of that like little side plot with her parents and the car accident where she talks about how her dad is just like kind of willing to blame himself and take the fall for things. I think that's a little bit in her DNA too, because she's just she feels badly about what happened with David, but then we find out that she knows there's something else going on there.
Oh yes, right. And that's because Ellen is making this deal with Patty to exonerate Ellen in her murder case in exchange for Ellen handing over the tape to Patty, which I must say, well done, Ellen. A masterful play. She's learned from the best already. It's only been 6 months she's been in this job, but she's really taken all these lessons to heart. But yeah, really putting the pressure on Patty, like when Ellen tells Patty to basically like make a deal with the DA. He wants to get reelected, right? Just like get it done. And so, yeah, she finally is able to get it done. And so Ellen's able to hand over the tape to Patty, and so threatening Frobisher with it, basically saying it's his choice that he can lose in court or agree to a settlement on her price, on Patty's price. And I think it's also really at that point where he's just so fully worn down by all of this, and he wants to move forward with his life. He just wants some land, and offers a final settlement of $2 billion, which is just
crazy,
an astronomical win for Patty, I must say. Like, I would be dining out on that for the rest of my life.
Oh yeah, she could retire then and there, because especially at the beginning when they're talking about the $100 million settlement. I mean, I was thinking, I'm like, that's a lot of money. That's pretty good. But she's like, no, this is not even, a portion
No.
of this man's net worth and what he owes you. I'm going to keep going
Yeah.
after him. And then you see why. And I love her ruthlessness towards the other characters too. Like when she is
Yes.
going after with the election and the district attorney on the Upper West Side, like people are going to be scared to go home here. Everyone's going to be scared to live here. Do you want that on your conscience? Like I love those moments from Glenn. They're
So good.
so good.
Yes, those knowing looks, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And then in the last few minutes of the finale, I think Glenn is also really stepping it up a notch in this finale too, because we get the reveal that Patty has actually lost her daughter, that her daughter died before like childbirth,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So she has this very emotional scene of visiting her gravesite. And I think after that is when she's also speaking with Ellen at her beach house about perhaps regretting the circumstances of her using Ellen and making her feel like, you know what, the slate is wiped clean now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, Ellen, like, you can forgive me, like that sort of thing. And Ellen agrees to work with her moving forward. And I absolutely love the reveal we get of Ellen having talked to the FBI the night of their big celebration party of winning the Frobisher case,
Mm-hmm.
and her actually knowing that Patty tried to have her killed at Patty's house, at her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably for Patty, it was to tie up loose ends. But my goodness, it is clear that like Patty underestimated Ellen even up to this point. And it's very Marquise de Merteuil coded
Mm-hmm.
when like Patty believes 1000% she is the smartest person in the room and that she will not be taken down. She will not be outsmarted, even by the people she is seemingly respecting most. And it's just this incredible setup for season 2 of like this chess match between the two of them. It gives me chills.
That's what I love about it, is it perfectly sets you up for season 2. It makes you want to keep watching. And I was thinking when this ended, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get sucked into maybe not a full series rewatch, but definitely season 2. I want to keep going.
Yes,
Because
I know.
I think it does such a good job of finally, setting Ellen up as a worthy adversary to Patty. And I really enjoy stories where the person who is like teaching the new person coming into the fold like how to be more like them, and then they teach them how to compete with them. It's like whether they know it's possible or not. And I think for Patty,
They teach them a little too well. Yeah.
she, like the Marquise, right, she has this sense that like she knows better, that she has this thing in her DNA because of her life experiences and the way that she works in the world, that she's always going to be ahead of someone else, no matter how well she trains them or how they work for her. She likes a number 2. She doesn't like someone though who also will want to be number 1, because as much as Tom says he does, he wants his name on the door and on the firm, like does he really care? Not really. She knows that, and she knows how she can work that. But with Ellen, there's an unknown there. And finally, when we get to the end of the series, of this season, there is someone who knows something that she doesn't know. And I like how it ends in that way. I think it's really smart, very juicy.
Very juicy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were also a few other plot lines that we didn't talk about, just that weren't quite related to the case, but things with like Patty dealing with her son Michael, who's kind of being disruptive, and I just love all those scenes that she's having to play with off of his energy, because he's just not here for whatever she is giving to him. And also the stuff with Lila.
Oh my God.
This woman who David, who is a doctor, met at the hospital because her grandfather was being treated there, and she basically just becomes Alex Forrest.
Yes,
right?
She does. She really does.
And is just obsessed with him and is relentlessly calling him and harassing Ellen at her workplace. And
he doesn't love you anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's I'm so curious what your thoughts were on this plot line, because I was laughing so hard. Like, this was camp gold for me.
It is camp gold. This is like Nanny Carey and One Tree Hill level insanity. Like, this is straight out of, I don't know. I need to start watching soaps because I feel like I would love them, but this is like what I think of when I think of soaps. And specifically the there are a couple of moments that kill me. One is in New Yorker, the Cassavetes retrospective at Film Forum
Yes.
that she wants to go to. I passed away in that moment, and
The specificity of
Patty
that.
had
I
to
know.
resuscitate me. That specificity, and then the other part is when she is in the doorway in their apartment. You see her in the mirror, and you have Ellen in the bathtub with all of those candles around.
Mm-hmm.
Camp gold. Like this woman,
Right.
why is she like she's breaking into their apartment? I also love the details of like when she's on the phone with David and she's just like sitting in her vanity. It's very like girly, and the production design on purpose just feels like she's this like very immature teenage girl. Her handwriting is so funny. Like it looks like a third grader wrote it with that lingerie. I die every, oh my God. This whole storyline. It's a bit of comic relief, I feel like, from everything else that's happening.
Yeah. And basically the sort of its purpose in all of this is to create a divide between Ellen and David, even though that really doesn't really factor into all that much in the end when you really think about how things end up.
Right.
It's really not because the only reason it's like slightly related is that there's tension between them, and then Ellen leaves, and then, you know, Katie has to deliver the table alone to David, and that's
right.
all it really is. But it's still a fun, like you said, just comic relief in a way.
So funny.
I do, any stray observations we wanted to say, any funny lines, any New York observations you might have had as a New Yorker?
Yes. This is such a great New York show because there are like the way they use locations, I think is really smart. Like when we're on the Upper East Side, when we're downtown, when we're on the Upper West Side, the fact that so Hewes and Associates is right by Madison Square Park. So we see that park quite a bit during the first season. And I love anytime also when Patty is taking her dog out. I think that is just like very funny, like any of her lines there. But what I also like about it is it does capture that energy of a certain type of power hungry New Yorker, and that energy around corporate lawyers in the city, I think, and high power litigators in the city, I think is really, really well done. And it's just fun tracking a lot of the locations and also seeing a lot of New York local actors. So a lot of the actors who are, in smaller roles that will pop up are New York staples, and it was fun, I think, just recognizing some of them. But with quotes, I have so many quotes. I won't do too many, but we have so many. This one to me, I have to say, because it is textbook Marquis. Like this is straight Dangerous Liaisons to me. This is the fork in the back of her hand moment, I'll call it. It's when it's in episode 6, but she says, "Let's be honest, men are sensitive. We may not like it, but we know how to play second fiddle. We're bred for it. Men can't do it. At least not the ones worth sharing a bed with." Like, period. Come on.
Yep. I mean, delicious.
So good. And along those lines too. And she's like talking about her former boyfriend who was just really nice and loved her and helped her get through law school. She's like, I dumped him as soon as I got my JD. He had no ambition. It disgusted me. So good. And Glenn knows how to deliver these lines like no one else.
She sure does. Amazing. I wrote down many little observations as well. A lot of your quotes that you already said are also my quotes, but just random moments in the series that are just like don't have anything to do with each other, but like I laughed out loud when like it's Ellen's birthday and Ellen's parents give her like dinner for 2 at the Olive Garden.
Yes. That was so funny. And that Budgie the Whale Carvel cake, which is really good. Yeah. But it's very funny. It's like it's almost like you can feel how young she is. Like she just isn't, she hasn't really made her way yet.
Patty in the office with Ellen and Katie, they have like ding dongs out, like the snack cakes, and she's eating it, and Patty's like, tastes like a ho-ho.
Which is true.
Which is episode title.
Yes.
Yep. Just wild. Or her trying to navigate TiVo. What a blast from the past that was.
How she uses the remote is so funny. Like she is
Yes.
so frustrated by this. It's like it looks like she's playing a video game. She's just like
Yes. She's
just
like smashing these
smashing
buttons
the
so
buttons.
aggressively.
I deleted your wild kingdom. Oh my god.
Yes. Like Patty doesn't have time for this newfangled like whatever technology here.
No,
You know?
she doesn't. Oh my
No.
god. I also really love when the grenade is delivered. That is just again incredible
Oh my
TV.
god.
But when she opens
Yep.
it and she goes, "Oh god, it's going to be a shitty week."
So good. Yeah, I love all of her deadpans. There's even
Yes.
one where like when Patty asks Ellen about like how her new assistant is working out, and her new assistant is horrible at his job, and Ellen's kind of trying to be diplomatic about it, being like, it's a little bumpy so far, and Patty just deadpans, I don't like him.
Yeah. I don't like
And
it.
sort of leaves it at that, and it's very much like her version of like, that's all, to continue the Devil Wears Prada comparisons,
Yeah.
just like dismissed.
I did think a lot about Miranda Priestley here, and there are a lot of parallels to The Devil Wears Prada, which I really enjoyed. But I also there's so many dream sequences also in this show that are really funny, which I think is also like an early 2000s drama touch that we get a lot. I mean, especially I mentioned The Sopranos earlier, get a lot of dreams for Tony Soprano, but there's an insane dream of Frobisher dancing with Patty where she says one of my favorite quotes. This is another Dangerous Liaisons moment, I think. She says, "I want you disgraced. I want history to erase your every achievement. I want you to feel the disgust in your children's eyes when they look at you in shame." And then she goes, "It's rude to abandon a girl on the dance floor. Almost as rude as abandoning a girl in a burning car."
Ugh. Killer. Just killer line.
Yes. Oh, so good.
That's a reference to his past,
Yeah.
right? Because we didn't talk about that, but like back in 83 or something, he like abandoned a girl who was dead in a car or something.
Yeah. His Chappaquiddick.
Wild.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, that. There's also like a very funny reference when Katie, I think, is cooking popcorn on the stove, and she has like the lid on the pot and it's like moving. That felt very much like a reference to Fatal Attraction.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I can see that.
With the bunny.
Yeah.
With the bunny. Yep.
One more that I had that was really funny. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but the other one I love is when she says at the end, she's like, "I'm going to treat some friends of mine at the Justice Department to dinner and a movie about the Gregory tape."
Yes.
Oh. Like I could use this at any time.
Yeah, and I just love her energy whenever she knows, like, she really ate that. Like she ate that line. She knows she got one over on him. It's delicious.
Oh, so good.
Of course, one other one that I don't know if you clocked this early on, but from Arthur Frobisher says at one point that things were beyond his control.
You know I did, Kevin.
Yes.
Another great Dangerous Liaisons moment for us.
Yeah.
It all connects.
There's just, it does. There are so many references of Fatal Attraction and Dangerous Liaisons, and even 101 Dalmatians with all the dog in peril stuff.
So many dogs in peril.
It's fascinating. Just, it feels like a nice amalgamation of things that came before. But also, a lot of fun little cameos too, like Donna Murphy as like this, like, etiquette coach, I guess, for Frobisher whenever he gets deposed. Yeah.
Just like, I heard you know how to bury a witness. Yeah. Oh,
yes.
His sex scenes are too much. I truly, it's giving House of Gucci, House of Gucci vibes. Like the wig is staying on for its dear life here.
Yeah. Yes, always coke fueled sex scenes for Frobisher. It's quite an image.
It really is.
Even like Michael Stuhlbarg shows up at one point, I think, as like a mediator for like Patty and her family
at Michael's school. All the drama with Michael and his school too. It's just like you just get the sense it's like she doesn't have time to deal with this.
No,
she doesn't want to deal with this. And the gag of her with the Emancipation Papers.
Yep,
she is taking her work into her personal life in so many scary ways.
Yep. So just a few other incidental things I want to talk about is First of all, I mean, I just love the episode titles themselves.
Yes.
They're all named after a quote from the episode. Do you have any favorites from this first season?
Oh, I mean, there are some really good ones. I do really like the
Yeah.
episode titles that we have. You, of course, mentioned one of my favorites, Tastes Like a Ho-Ho, which I think when you see that episode title, it's just like, oh my God, what's going on? I think
Yeah.
there are some other ones too that are like Blame the Victim. That is such a, like a core, it's such a, when you hear that, especially I think in today's climate, you're like, oh my God, like Patty should not
I know.
be saying this. But of course, this is her idea. But of course, I also love I Hate These People, which is episode 11. Great title.
Yep.
And I think the finale is a great title too, because I know Patty. I think that that is like a
Yeah.
perfect way to end the season. I love that title, but they're all good. They're all fun.
They're all good. Jesus, Mary, and Joe Cocker
Yeah,
is
truly what's going
beautiful.
on. Yes.
Especially said by Ray Fisk with
Mm-hmm.
Zelchko Evenek doing his southern accent.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, Mary, and Joe Cocker. Yeah. Or She Spat at Me. Incredible.
Oh, yeah. That's good too. That's a good episode.
Yep. So I always love those.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I was obsessed at the time and remain obsessed with the opening title sequence and
Yes.
theme.
Yes.
I don't know about you.
It
When I am
is
through with you, there won't be
great.
anything left.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's one of those where I can always tell if I like a title sequence based on whether or not I click skip intro when I'm watching it. And I watched it for every episode. I did. It's very short, of course, but I love like the way we see Glenn's profile and like how Patty is used, and we just have this like it does feel like one of those kinds of like prestige dramas from the time where you're just getting
Very
to see New York, and yeah, a good theme song for it too.
Yeah, all the landmarks. And yeah, I love the shot of Patty holding her briefcase with like her hands covered in blood.
Yes, that's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I would never skip this intro.
No,
Never.
never.
It's so in keeping with the show itself that it's just, it really gets you in the mood for the legal drama and the apparently the death of
The death of many.
death of it all. The death of many. Yes. Yeah, so that's season 1 of Damages. I don't know if you had anything else. I'm sure we have other things we could say, but
Oh my
I think we
gosh.
covered it pretty well.
I think we
You know?
did. I feel like just Glenn really is just fabulous as Patty Hewes. Like this just feels like, and you and Eric described this, I think, really well in the pilot episode, but like when I think of Glenn Close, like this is one of those roles where it feels like the best use of all of her talents. Like I feel like I'm watching, it's like when you watch like an athlete at the top of their game, or you know, when you see a director make their masterpiece. Like that's how I feel about Glenn and Damages in this role. Like she is Patty Hewes. It's perfect.
She really is. She becomes her so thoroughly in this first season.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love even reading some of her interviews from the time.
Yeah.
Of, like, people asked her, like, why you do all these kind of, like, villainous types of characters. And she just has such a fun sense of humor about it and is just being like, I don't know, it's just something within me. I really am very nice.
Yeah, she
Like,
is.
and yeah, she is. So, you know, it speaks to her range, really.
It really
And
does.
she channels that anger in her work rather than in her actual life. So, all right. Well, the first season of Damages aired from July 24th to October 23rd, 2007. Just the mere thought of a prestige cable show running for 4 months, I feel like, is rarer and rarer these days, you know?
Yeah.
But it had a strong premiere, but it started to drop in the ratings to the point that the finale was actually watched by about half of the audience that tuned in for the premiere. You could perhaps say this is because of how serialized it is, how you need to be kind of paying attention to catch everything. There at the time there wasn't really a culture of like streaming as much, you know, so it's harder to catch up. But I also think FX had sort of cultivated an audience that was predominantly male around this time, with shows like The Shield and Rescue Me, and even like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like they kind of skewed a little younger, a little more male. I think Damages was serving a different demographic, a little more upscale, a little more female. So perhaps that was why, but regardless, reviews were mostly positive about the season. And then with awards, it got 4 Golden Globe nominations, tied for the most of any show that year, including Best Drama Series, Best Actress for Glenn, Supporting Actor for Ted Danson, and Supporting Actress for Rose Byrne. And Glenn won. This was her second Golden Globe Award. Unfortunately, she did not get to make a speech because that was during the writer's strike of early 2008. So the Globes did not have a ceremony that year. They just had like a press conference, but still counts on her record. It later got 3 nominations from the Television Critics Association Awards, including for Glenn in Individual Achievement in Drama. And then at the Emmys, Damages earned 7 nominations, because there's also casting. That we had Best Drama Series, which is the first time an FX show was nominated for Best Drama Series in Emmy history. Glenn was nominated in Best Lead Actress in a Drama Series, which was her 11th nomination in her career. Ted Danson and Zelchko Ivanek were nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Alan Coulter was nominated for directing for the pilot. The showrunners were nominated for writing for the pilot, and it was nominated for casting. So pretty great haul for a first season show.
Yeah.
And then it won 3 of those 7 nominations. So it won for casting, which is a big one. It won for Zelchko Ivanek, who won Best Supporting Actor, and Glenn won in Best Actress. Very exciting, pretty much inevitable, but it was her second Emmy win after winning about 12 years earlier for the TV movie Serving in Silence.
I love Serving in Silence, as you know.
Yes.
I watched that for the first time because of The World According to Glenn, and I thought it was a great TV movie.
Yeah, it holds up surprisingly well. But she had a lovely speech this time around, even though she was played off.
I know.
Which is unfortunate. But anyway, with all that said, Sophia, any thoughts on why it was kind of a critic's favorite, kind of an awards darling for its first season, and why it did have an audience, but maybe it wasn't a widespread kind of blockbuster hit?
Yeah, I think what you said about, the FX's reputation at the time, just thinking back to the shows that were on FX, and I think the types of shows people were watching, I think that makes sense that it probably, I think, dipped a little bit throughout the season. I also think that with awards and why it did so well, first, why it did well critically, I went back and I read reviews from the time, and I think there were, what was funny to me was there were any of them that were a little bit negative. I just kind of disagreed with, frankly, around just the far-fetched aspects of the plot, or feeling, a little bit too heightened or dramatic in certain moments. I think, though, the reason why it probably did well was because a lot of those aspects and what we were covering really in the season, that was really popular at the time. It felt like, I think, something that would have aligned with what viewers also, would have really liked, but it also sets itself apart. And I think it's also, you can't really talk about Damages, I think, without talking about Mad Men a little bit, and how, they air at the same time, and they're serving, I think, really, really similar audiences, but are very different types of shows. But one is led by a woman, and really led by women, if you think about it, because yes, you have Glenn Close, but you also have Rose Byrne there. So it's a different really thing than what we're seeing at the time. And I think people then really appreciated its freshness. I know I certainly did as a young viewer watching it. And with the Emmys, I mean, I watched so much TV at the time, like I said at the beginning of this, but I remember these Emmys in particular, just knowing that Glenn had to win, and reading Entertainment Weekly coverage around the time and what was going on around the Emmys. It just felt like she was a shoo-in to win. And even if you look at other people in her category too, you have an ABC and an NBC show, and then you have 2 TNT shows, right? You have The Closer, Saving Grace, Law and Order SVU for Mariska Hargitay, and then Sally Field for Brothers and Sisters. And Brothers and Sisters, I remember when that came out and that being a moment. But it was always going to be Glenn. It just felt that way. But I think then what was surprising was Zelchko winning, because that category felt a little bit, I think, more, and reading back on coverage from the time, that felt a little bit more up in the air. Could it be someone like Ted Danson winning for Damages? Could it be Michael Emerson for Lost? But this was really, I think, Lost really, that really invented my need for riddles and shows, I guess, at the time.
Same.
But yeah. I think that was a really up in the air. That category was up in the air. So for him to win in a bit of a surprise there was also, that's really cool. too.
Yeah. Just to go off of that a little bit, I
Mhm.
remember there was the Emmy submission tape system at that time where each person submitted an episode. They still do this, but it doesn't really matter at this
In the
point because
same way,
people
yeah.
just right, people just watch the shows and its popularity basically. But I think around this time they had to like they had this sort of panel of sorts perhaps of people who had to watch every episode that was submitted,
Hmm.
and like the best tape more or less tended to win.
Hmm.
And Zelchko submitting I Hate These People is just like
Yeah.
an undeniable, incredible showcase for him,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. I think that's it's such an interesting thing to consider. Like when you're thinking about the Emmys or the Oscars, Tonys, really any awards show, just how they've changed over the
Yeah.
years in terms of submissions and how people vote and what's really important to different groups of voters. But I love that Glenn submitted the pilot. I
Yeah.
just that is such a flex, I think,
Mm-hmm.
just to say like, yep, here's the first episode of this show. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she could have submitted any episode, I think,
Yeah. We
really.
said it last week.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Exactly.
the fact that she submitted the pilot, I think is really cool.
Yeah. Even though her best work, I think, is probably in the finale
Yeah.
or like towards the end,
When she has
where
those
she gets more of
bigger
those
moments.
emotional moments.
Hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, she would have won if she submitted Tastes Like a Ho Ho. Like she would have just like, she would have taken it.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Because like Sally had won the year before, Mariska had won the year before that, Holly Hunter in Saving Grace, kind of a smaller show, Kira Sedgwick in The Closer, her time would come.
Hmm.
And so with all due respect, I think it was probably a blowout for Glenn. I don't think anyone was coming close to beating her, which I have to say is quite refreshing as a fan of hers to be
Yeah.
in that situation of feeling very confident that Glenn is going to win an industry award, you know?
I was
It's
gonna
just
say,
nice.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you feel good about that because that feeling is
Yeah.
it's a rare feeling when you're a fan of someone and they actually are running away with an award season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
and there's some great lines. You and Eric mentioned this too, but there's so many great lines throughout season one about awards. And I just always
Yes.
think about how she won one of her Emmys for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just instantly iconic work.
Yeah.
And like I said, her speech is lovely. And she talks about how, like, the other women in her category were, I wrote this down. She said, proving that complicated, powerful, mature women are sexy and high entertainment and can carry a show. And she's just so excited as she's saying this. It's really sweet.
I loved that
And I
so
agree with her.
much. I do too. I
Yeah.
want that on a poster. Perfect.
Yes. Yes. And she says she calls them the sisterhood of the TV drama divas.
I love her so much.
Yeah, she also includes Helen Mirren and Judi Dench in that group. She adds that in at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's so nice how she credits all the other women for kind of changing the conversation about who can lead a show around that time. But also, I love how she always mentions Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and how like they were doing movies and TV for so much of their career, and that didn't affect their careers. She always has said this, like all the way back to the 80s.
Yeah.
Talking about how like when Glenn was doing TV movies, such as Something About Amelia, which she starred in with Ted Danson, funnily enough,
Yeah.
how like she was told like, oh, it might affect your career, but she always contended, hey, the Brits do it, Judi Dench does it, Helen Mirren does it, and like she has kept that notion throughout her career and always credits the two of them.
Oh, I love that so much. And like I said at the
Yeah.
beginning, I think some of the best roles for women, especially, are on TV. Like they're better. There are better roles there sometimes. And the fact that, today I think we hear from some actors who will say like, I'll never do TV. I'm not going to do TV. And they kind of turn their noses up at it. Why?
Yeah.
Like you're not too good you're not too good for it. Not if Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Glenn Close have anything to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. Or Meryl or like any of these
them.
are best actresses. Yeah. So take that. Let's get to our last segment where we're going to rate Glenn's performance on a very specific scale. This is just a formality at this point. But thinking about her performance in the first season of Damages, is she ready for her close-up? Is it low Glennergy? Is it close but no cigar? Is she Glennicent?
Yes.
You know the rest.
She is
Yeah.
beyond ready for her close up. This is like,
Yeah.
this is a perfect Glenn Close performance. And like I
Yeah.
said, one that I just associate with the best in her resume, really. And yeah, I think it just highlights her best talents as an actress. But I think what's also so cool about it is she is in her 60s pushing herself into new territory and new ways to think about material that she has done in a way before when she was younger. Like when you think about Fatal Attraction and Dangerous Liaisons, we could discuss the similarities between those and Damages all day, but there's something about, she's much younger in those roles. And a lot of that has to, a lot of that and the romance of those roles and how sex comes into it, like that's a very key part of her performance. And here it's a little bit different, right? And how she approaches the role and the work and her relationship with men, certainly, and other women. So I love that she's doing something that has, shades of her past great work, her best performances, but she's creating something new at the same time and pushing herself into new territory.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's just repeating exactly what I said last week when we got to this segment. She's just off the charts, perfect for this role. I think of her sort of Mount Rushmore of characters, and it really is Alex Forrest and the Marquise de Merteuil, Norma Desmond, and Patty Hewes. And how
perfection.
Lucky for an actress to be able to have those 4 iconic roles in her career. It's wonderful. And I'm so thrilled that she got this chance to prove her talent and prove that it's okay to do television and it's not going to hurt your career at all, because she is still an icon all these years later, regardless of her doing movies and TV and theater and whatever else. So, well, Sophia, we've come to the end, but do you regret what we did?
I will never regret spending time discussing Glenn on this show.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right answer.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, please don't try to kill me in any particular way.
Oh, that's right. I'm the Patty in this situation. Oh my gosh.
You are.
Okay.
Yeah. But I am the Tom. So like,
no.
We'll see how the relationship evolves in the course of the next few seasons. But yes, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I feel so lucky that I got to do Dangerous Liaisons and Damages. Like, my 2 favorite Glenn Close performances. And I had so much fun talking about this season. It was just really fun to, I think, dig into a full season of her work too, and talk about the format of that and just where she was at this point. And yeah, thank you so much. It was so fun.
Of course. Where can people find more of you on the internet if you wish for them to find you?
Maybe I'll hide some things like Patty would, separate my personal life from my podcasting. Just kidding. You can find me on Blue Sky. Not really. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Sophia Sim. You can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde. We're coming back this week with a brand new season 7, and our 300th episode. You referenced the La La Land Moonlight Envelope Gate. We'll be talking about that and reviewing both of those movies. So exciting. You can listen to that wherever you find podcasts. And then you can find my writing, interviews, reviews, and more at Awards Watch.
Yes. If you're not following Sophia by now, what are you doing?
Truly.
Yeah. You're only getting half the story. Thank you all so much for listening. You could find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, just Kevin Jacobsen, no underscore on Blue Sky. You can listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, And the Runner-Up Is, for coverage of every Best Actress race. That's And the Runner-Up Is on all platforms. And to keep up with the world according to Glenn on social, follow The Glenn Pod. Rate, review, and follow The World According to Glenn on all podcast platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.